So, Lindsay Elliott from Lindsay Elliott Coaching and creator of Break Up with Anxiety one-to-one coaching program. And today I'm going to talk about the thorny topic of people pleasing. And I don't know if it's actually a thorny topic, but it's quite a juicy topic, a big topic. So I'm not going to be able to cover absolutely everything about people pleasing in this video because I want to keep it relatively short. I could probably sit here for an hour and talk about it, or days probably. So I'm just going to point to a few things that I have found really helpful in my own experience with people pleasing. So just to give you a little bit of background, is I feel like I probably would have described myself as definitely a people pleaser for almost all of my life. So from quite a young age, sort of teenagery type age, I sort of spent quite a lot of time trying to look after everybody else's feelings and not taking my own feelings into account so much, which kind of fed into this sort of I'm a good girl kind of belief that I had about myself. And that just kind of went into adulthood as well, with a lot of wanting to look at, it can come from a really genuine place as well, of really wanting to care and look after people. But it's when it's turned up too loud that people pleasing becomes a problem. Anyway, so I've had a lot of that experience in my past and in my journey, and it still shows up for me today sometimes. But I do feel that I've seen a lot that's been super helpful for myself. And it does seem to me as though people pleasing seems to be quite a universal thing. So almost everybody, I mean, it isn't blanket because no experience is blanket in the human experience, but I would say a big percentage of people would either identify themselves as people pleasers or would identify that they have difficulty saying no to something and end up saying yes to things, or that they feel they must put other people before them, otherwise they'll be seen as selfish, and that it's part of their personality or their nature or what it means to be a good person if you are looking after everybody else and not looking after yourself. So it does seem to be quite a universal experience. And there's one piece of it that was so helpful for me in terms of if we kind of pull back and look at it from like a brain point of view. Okay, so the machine in your head, the organ that is its number one priority is to keep you alive, is survival. It makes total sense from a brain's point of view that people pleasing seems like a really good idea. So we've got to remember, and I have talked about this in previous videos, but the brain is, how it's functioning is still about 200,000 years ago. So when we would have lived in tribes of small groups, and we would have had very difficult conditions, and our physical survival absolutely would have been challenged almost every day, if not several times a day, by lack of food, severe weather, the threat of attack from another tribe, threat of attack by a wild animal, disease, infection, everything. So part of that survival thing is also that if you were chucked out of the tribe, so say you did something wrong, say that you had an affair with someone's wife, or I'm not saying these things are necessarily wrong, but things that the tribe elder maybe may not appreciate. Say you were bad-mouthing the tribe elder, I don't know. Anyway, let's just say you did something to annoy the tribe, and the potential then is that you are going to be chucked out of the tribe. So you're no longer going to live in a group. You're going to have to go off into the wilderness and live on your own. Now, your chances of survival there, physical survival, very long. So to a brain, being chucked out of the tribe is a bit like equating it to death. Pretty soon you're going to be dead because you can't survive in that kind of wilderness environment on your own. Now, obviously, our brains are still 200,000 years ago, but our bodies aren't. We now live in a world, for the most part, not everybody, but for the most part, where we have access to food, we have a roof over our head, we have enough money to live, we have clothes, we are protected from the weather, we have medicines, all that sort of stuff. So being chucked out of the tribe now, so being isolated or ostracized, doesn't have the same survival meaning that it used to, but to our brain it does. So this is why I think when we people please, because we fear either being disapproved of or people thinking badly of us, because it's some version of being chucked out of the tribe. So, and also obviously we've got to remember that when we're children, very small children, we are absolutely 100% dependent on our parents or our caregivers or the adults around us to look after us. Otherwise, we're not going to survive. We can't make ourselves a bit of toast. We can't generally wash ourselves. We can't dress ourselves. We don't know how to keep ourselves safe. So there's that element of it as well, that from we in our early childhood, we also don't want to be chucked out of the tribe or ostracized or disapproved of by adults, because that also means difficulty for the physical being. And sometimes that wanting to please thing can begin in childhood for that reason, from a survival point of view, but then it kind of just gets carried over into adulthood innocently into adulthood when we don't need it anymore because we're totally capable of looking after ourselves. So sorry. So those are two more practical sort of brainy things that I found really helpful. So really just to know that any time that there's a perceived threat of me being ostracized or not or disapproved of, that my brain's going to react like I'm being chucked out of the tribe. So it's going to overreact is what I'm saying. So it's just really good to know that, because it isn't the case, it's not the truth, but it's just a reaction that the brain is having. Okay, so we've got that. The other super helpful piece with people pleasing is to know that often when we're people pleasing, we are ahead of time trying to second guess how people are going to react. So I must do that so that they don't, have a go at me, so that they don't think badly of me, so that they don't think I'm an awful person, so that they don't invite me places, so that I make sure they still invite me places. All of this, kind of stuff. Often a lot of it is mental activity, trying to imagine how someone's going to react, and then trying to, ahead of time, second guess what the problems might be, second guess where the conflict might be, so that we don't get into any kind of conflict with people where they might ostracize us. But a huge thing to see about that is, as much as we think we can know what other people are thinking and how they're going to react, we simply can't know that 100%. We are innocently making it up in our mind how they're going to react, what it's going to mean, and what the outcome is going to be. Unless you're actually in someone's head, which so far none of us can actually do that, we can never know how someone else is going to react. Now, I know that the people around you may have some fairly predictable reactions to things that you think you can predict, and maybe sometimes that comes true. But also, I know I've definitely had the experience where I have been doing something nice, what I have perceived as a good, nice thing for someone, and they have not reacted with the thanks and gratitude that I have hoped they would. And also where I have done something and someone's had a really negative reaction to it, and I have not been expecting that at all. Or I have been anticipating speaking to someone about something. I'm in kind of people pleasing mode and I'm feeling all worried about it. And I think they're going to freak out. And they're just like, okay, that's fine. Like, oh, wow. So the mind, again, goes up into thought, goes up into its intellect and starts overthinking these things. And the mind isn't a brilliant predictor of the future. In fact, it's a pretty rubbish predictor of the future. And it's also a really rubbish predictor of what other people are thinking. So that's a really important piece of people pleasing, that when you notice that your mind is starting to go into thinking about how someone's going to react, preempting how they're going to react, and then trying to kind of pretzel yourself into all different shapes so that you can keep them happy, you can never know what's going to happen in that situation. So you can just notice your mind doing it and gently kind of try to step away from it. The third really helpful thing that I found with people pleasing is that when I'm engaging, or used to engage, or sometimes still can engage in a people pleasing behavior, and I'm doing that because I want to avoid a reaction in someone else, and I think that how they speak to me or what they say, the criticism they may make, or the conflict that may ensue, that is creating the feelings of discomfort in me, that they are directly causing that, their reaction to my having said no, or I'm not going to, or I want to do this, or whatever it is, that they are causing that feeling in me. Now, when I learned that is actually a misunderstanding about how life worked. That took a load off of my shoulders, not only in the people pleasing thing, but also just in relationships, full stop. Because we all live, so I want you to imagine there's like a bubble around me, and and in that bubble is all my thoughts and feelings. And that's what I get to experience. Every single moment of every single day, I'm in my bubble of experience created by thought and feeling flowing through me. That's my own thought and feeling. I mean, I'm not that we really control it, but it comes from who knows where. Thought and feeling creating my experience, but it's coming from the inside out. And then we've got everybody else in their own bubbles. And all they are ever feeling is their own thinking and feeling about life, not feeling life directly, but thinking and feeling about life. So if, say, I was in a situation, let's use my husband as an example, where I was trying to engage in some kind of people-pleasing behaviour because I didn't want him to shout at me about something, and he does shout at me, and I feel, some kind of reaction to that, and I think that's coming from him. No, it's not coming from him. It's not like his words and actions can kind of come this way like gamma rays or something into me to create a feeling in me. It's always coming this way through me, my own thought and feeling about what he said. That's what I get to feel. So really the point of that is, in any given moment, I am only ever feeling me in a people-pleasing situation. I'm in any relationship, I'm only ever feeling me, my reaction to what they have said, to their reaction. I hope that makes sense. It is a bit of a, well, for me, it was a bit of a kind of like, whoa, it took me a little while to get my head around that. But because the truth of how life is working is we're only ever experiencing our own thought and feeling coming as one package, coming through us. We're not feeling life directly. We're also not feeling other people's reactions directly. That is never happening. So if my husband, say in this situation, if he shouted at me, if I'm in quite a good mood, that might just brush off of me. I might go, oh, he's obviously in a low mood. I can have that reaction to it. Just like, oh, it's okay, it will pass. If I'm in a lower mood, different thought and feeling passing through me, my thought and feeling, I might be like, oh, I can't believe he shouted at me. What does this mean? Is he going to leave me? I mean, I don't think this because, but anyway, but you can have that kind of reaction to it. So the reaction is totally dependent on what's happening in the receiving vehicle, because it's all coming from inside me, not from inside him. And if you can really see that that is happening, that's why it no longer makes sense to actually people please, because I can never know what someone else is thinking about what I'm, either asserting or not asserting, or what I want to do. And in any given conflict or kind of exchange in relationship, I'm only ever feeling my own thinking, and that's going to pass, and it will change, and is 100% safe. So that's something quite big. If you've got any questions about that, please leave them in the comments below. So the other piece that I just want to focus on, I think there might be two other pieces that I want to focus on, is that there's also quite a pervading belief that in our society, and particularly for women, but this is also true for men, that if we put other people ahead of ourselves, it means that we are selfish. And what I want to just suggest in that is that it is just a belief. And a belief is just a thought that has been thought over and over and over again, either individually or as a collective. And as far as I can see, this is just a collective belief, a misunderstanding that it means that you are selfish in some way or not a good person if you put others' needs ahead of your own. And I just simply don't see that as being true. Now, it doesn't mean that we have to trample all over other people, or we can't look after other people, or we can't all be in it together, and we can't show kindness to people. It doesn't mean that. But what it does mean is that it doesn't make you a better person by constantly putting other people's needs ahead of your own. that is just a false and erroneous thing that's kind of been connected in our society. So just seeing if you take that off of the table, does that lighten it as well? And I've got two really nice quotes about this that I want to read. So the first one is from this book, which is a beautiful book by Alan Cohen, Deep Breath of Life, highly recommend. But the quote is actually by Arnold Patent. If you ever feel that you should do something, lie down until the feeling passes. I love that. Which is just really pointing to all of that should energy that comes. That's totally a mind. That's totally a brain that is just scared of being ostracized, scared of being chucked out of the tribe and saying you should, you must, da, da, da. Anytime you hear that, that isn't your deeper self. That is your mind. So you can safely just turn away from that. And then the other quote that I love is by Natalie Lue, L-U-E, and it's, if we don't say yes authentically, we say yes resentfully. And that leads to far more problems than if we'd said no in the first place. I'm going to read that again. If we don't say yes authentically, we say yes resentfully. And that leads to far more problems than if we'd said no in the first place. I love that. I think that just sums it up beautifully. So the last piece of this, because I'm aware that this video is maybe getting a little long, and this really is probably the bigger, for me, like the bigger, deeper part of this, is that if we believe that our worth, who we are, our sense of being good enough, of being a good person, if that looks like it comes from outside of us through external validation of people liking us and praising us and thinking good things about us, if that's where it looks like a genuine feeling of worthiness and good enoughness and okayness comes from, the external validation, then we will constantly be in people-pleasing mode. And it is endless and it will never stop. Because your mind will constantly be, well, you've got to do this in order to be validated, approved of, good enough. It's a mind search in the wrong place. And because we cannot control what other people think, we can't even know what other people think of us. And sometimes we may be validated and sometimes we won't. It's a really rocky, shaky ground to be on that doesn't ever get stable. It really doesn't ever get stable and is an endless search. So one of the bigger takeaways is then to look more deeply at, okay, so how can I validate myself? Where is my sense of worthiness and good enoughness? Where does that really come from? And it doesn't come from the psychology and it doesn't come from outside of us. And when we really deeply know that, then people pleasing again just doesn't look like a sensible thing to do anymore, because we don't need it, because we know that regardless of whatever actions we do make or we don't make, whether we say yes, whether we say no, whether people like us or not, is not affecting our sense of self-worth and good enoughness, our sense that we are a wholly deserving and whole human being, regardless of what anybody else thinks of us. Now, I know that can be a hard position to think about being in, but truly that's where the freedom lies. And I do have quite a few videos on my channel. I have a playlist all about self-esteem and insecurity. So there's quite a few videos where I point to how you can start to see that this sense of just worthiness, okayness, and deserving is absolutely inbuilt into all of us and doesn't come from the outside. So I hope that this video has been helpful. Please do let me know in the comments below if you've got any questions or anything has occurred to you. And if you have enjoyed this video, please do give it a like, because it helps the algorithm to pick up my channel. And please do also subscribe to my channel. That would be amazing. And thank you so much for watching and being here. Bye-bye.